Good afternoon and welcome to BJC Mitzvah Day number 205, a mitzvah that keeps your soul on its way. New mitzvah, once again found in Parshas Acharei Mois in the book of Ikra. And today's mitzvah is the prohibition to reveal the ervah of a woman and her daughter's daughter. Says the verse, the ervah of a woman and her daughter you shall not uncover. You shall not take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to reveal her ervah. They are close relatives. It is depravity. Says the commentary, as was explained in the introduction to Mitzvah 203, this mitzvah establishes a prohibition against cohabiting with either one's wife's daughter's daughter, i.e. her granddaughter through her daughter, or one's wife's mother's mother, her grandmother through her mother. This is because the prohibition works both ways. When one marries a woman, her daughter's daughter becomes prohibited to him. And when one marries a woman's daughter's daughter, the elder woman, who is now his wife's maternal grandmother, becomes prohibited to him. Got that? Okay. We are commanded not to reveal the ervah, meaning to cohabit with a woman and her daughter's daughter. And we have already stated in Mitzvah 203 that this prohibition applies exclusively when one marries the first woman and then cohabits with the second. As it is stated in Leviticus, you shall not take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter, etc. And in Scripture, the term taking connotes taking by way of marriage. Among the laws of the mitzvah is that which the sages of blessed memory prohibited as a safeguard to this biblical prohibition of cohabiting with a woman and her daughter's daughter. Namely, they prohibited one's wife's daughter's daughter, i.e., the granddaughter of one's wife's daughter, meaning the great-granddaughter, alone, but not any subsequent generations, as well as one's wife's mother's mother alone, but not any preceding generation. So in other words, the great-granddaughter is rabbinical extension, and the great-grandmother, but not the great-great-grandmother, not the great-great-granddaughter. And one's wife's mother's father's mother alone, but not any preceding generations. Mitzvahs 203 to 205 established prohibitions against cohabiting with several relatives of one's wife. The sages prohibited additional relatives as a safeguard to the biblical prohibitions. Chinuch summarizes all of the relatives that are biblically and rabbinically prohibited under these mitzvahs. Let's see, do we have time for this? Okay. The sum of the matter concerning the prohibitions of cohabiting with a woman and her daughter, a woman and her son's daughter, and a woman and her daughter's daughter, which was again mitzvahs 203, 204, 205, is that the Torah prohibits a person to marry, cohabit with 6 relatives of his wife, aside from the sister of his wife, who is prohibited under Mitzvah 206, we'll get there. The 6 prohibited relatives include 3 who are above one's wife on the family tree, namely one's wife's mother and her 2 grandmothers, her father's mother and her mother's mother, and 3 who are below one's wife on the family tree, namely one's wife's daughter, her daughter's daughter, and her son's daughter. And as a safeguard to the biblical prohibitions, the sages added to these biblically prohibited women another 6 relatives of one's wife, 4 of which are above his wife on the family tree, i.e., all 4 of one's wife's great-grandmothers, and 2 of which are below his wife on the family tree, 2 types of great-granddaughters. For this is undeniably the way that the matter ought to be, as the 2 grandmothers of one's wife bring alone with them 4 other women, i.e., the 4 great-grandmothers of one's wife, to safeguard the prohibition against cohabiting with the grandmothers. Whereas one's wife's son's daughter and her daughter's daughter can bring only, as a safeguard, only 2 women who are like them. The footnote explains that, but we're out of time. To be continued with this mitzvah, God willing, Motzi Shabbos, to sponsor future mitzvah 36 100 for gold. Have a great day.